Alex, I spent 3 hours yesterday stare battling a piece of half-inch plate steel. I'd drawn up this bracket that looked like a piece of modern art on my screen. Sleek curves, internal pockets, the whole works. But once I got it to the mill, the metal just looked back at me and laughed. The cutter couldn't reach the corners. The vibration sounded like a cat in a blender, and I realized I'd designed something that was technically possible but practically a nightmare.
A cat in a blender? That's visceral, Tiger. So basically, you fell into the classic trap of it works in CAD, so it must work in the real world.
Exactly. It's that gap between a digital dream and the cold, hard reality of a machine spindle. That's what we're digging into today. Design for manufacturability, specifically in metal. It sounds like a corporate buzzword, but in reality, it's just the art of not making your own life, or your fabricator's life, a living misery.
It seems like a lot of folks think DFM is just about making things cheaper, but from what I'm seeing, it's actually about whether the thing can even exist without costing 10 times the budget or breaking the spirit of the machinist.
It's about the spirit, Alex. Truly. Look, if you're an engineer or a maker, your primary job is performance. You want the part to hold the weight or spin at the speed. But a part that meets every spec but can't be clamped to a table might as well be a paperweight. Good DFM is like writing a recipe that actually fits in the pans you have in your kitchen.
Okay, so let's get into the weeds. If I'm sitting there at my computer designing a custom metal mount, where do the wheels usually fall off? Where do people start making those expensive choices without realizing it?
It usually starts with what I call tolerance overkill. Someone puts a plus or minus 5/1000ths of an inch on a bracket that's just holding a plastic shroud. Every time you tighten a tolerance unnecessarily, a machinist somewhere has to slow down, use more expensive tools, and check the part 5 more times. It's like demanding a surgeon's precision to cut a slice of birthday cake. If it doesn't need to be that tight, let the metal breathe a little.
So laziness is a virtue, or at least being relaxed with the specs.
It's about being intentional. If you specify a hole that's too deep for a standard drill bit, or a pocket with corners so sharp a round tool can't possibly get in there, you're asking for a miracle. I've seen designs where the weld joint was placed inside a tiny box where no welding torch on earth could fit. Unless you've got a trained squirrel with a TIG welder, that part isn't getting built.
I'd pay to see the welding squirrel. But all jokes aside, this really impacts the bottom line, doesn't it? If I send a messy design to a shop, those higher than expected bids aren't just greed, they're a hassle tax.
Absolutely. A shop looks at a drawing and they look for traps. They see a material that's notorious for warping when it gets hot, or a part that requires 4 different setups on the machine. They're thinking about the time the machine isn't cutting because they're trying to figure out how to hold the dang thing. Take sheet metal, for example. People forget that metal has a memory. If you design a bend too close to a hole, that hole is going to turn into an oval the second the press brake hits it. It's physics. The metal stretches and pulls. If you don't account for that bend allowance in the design phase, nothing lines up during assembly.
That's a great point. It's not just about the individual part, it's about how it plays with others. You mentioned assembly earlier. What are the killers there?
Oh, the 3-hand dilemma. Designs where you need one person to hold the nut, one to turn the bolt, and a third to hold the flashlight, all inside a space the size of a mailbox. If you can use standard hardware, off-the-shelf bolts and nuts rather than custom-threaded mystery meat, you save a fortune.
I've noticed a lot of the big players are pushing sustainability in DFM now too. Is that just more corporate talk, or is there a craft element to that?
It's actually pretty practical. If I can nest my parts on a sheet of steel so I'm only wasting 10% of the material instead of 40%, I'm saving money and the planet at the same time. Also, picking materials that don't require toxic coatings just to survive a humid afternoon. It's about the whole life cycle, from the scrap bin to the finished product.
It sounds like the key is really getting the design and production teams to actually talk to each other before the first cut is made.
You hit the nail on the head. In the old days, you'd throw the drawing over the wall and wait for the shop to yell at you. Now, with the tools we have, we can simulate the manufacturing. We can see where the heat is going to warp the part or where the tool's going to crash. Putting in that work early might feel slow, but it's faster than rebuilding a failed prototype 3 times.
So, give me a tiger rule to live by for my next metal project.
All right, before you hit save, imagine you have to build 1,000 of these by hand with a hangover and a broken wrist. If that thought makes you want to cry, simplify the design. Use standard parts, give your tools some elbow room, and remember that metal is a living thing that moves and groans. Respect the material, and it'll respect your budget.
I think that's the most sensible thing you've said all week. Simplicity isn't just cheaper, it's actually much harder to get right, but it pays off in spades.
Every single time. Now let's go see if I can fix that modern art bracket of mine before I turn it into a very expensive doorstop.
Good luck. I'll bring the flashlight.